Shojodoji got a new form in this set. It is a pretty fast-paced deck that looks to generate multi-attack by binding their units and then calling them out from bind zone during your turn. A boss unit is Cloudwater Flitfoot Stealth Rogue Shojodoji, which can Energy Blast 3 and bind 3 stealth units from soul. Then you choose 2 of your opponent's rearguard circles and bind all of the cards in them, and then they also bind the card from their hand. At the end of that turn, your opponent puts all the bound cards back to hand. Then when it attacks or is attacked, you can put 2 rearguards in the soul and call 2 stealth units from bind to different rows. But if it's your opponent's turn, you can guard with them instead. This new Shojodoji is everything this deck needed to become really good. It is a self-sufficient engine for binding its own cards from soul, calling those cards from bind, and putting new cards into soul. It is also just extremely free to do all of this, which makes the cost of the rearguards be a lot more usable. For our ride line, we have both the grade 1 and 2 Shojodoji, which can both soul blast to call themselves from the bind zone. When you ride the grade 1, you look at top 5 cards and put a stealth normal unit into soul and 1 into bind. And whenever you ride grade 2, you call 1 and put 1 to soul. This is debatably one of, if not the strongest ride line in standard, due to how easily it sets up the deck and the ability to have a grade 2 game from the free semi-searchable call. A lot of the other rearguards have full value when placed early as well, like Stealth Fiend Izazao, which when placed and you have a Shojodoji Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 and add a stealth normal unit from your top 5 to your hand. Whenever it's put into soul from rearguard, you put an opponent's bound card to the bottom of the deck and give your Vanguard plus 5k power. Izazao is an insane consistency booster since it can search out Persona Rides, Sentinels, or needed rearguards. It is a very good card during the grade 2 game since it will add a card and not have to remove itself. It is also a primary target for your Shojodoji to put into soul to give a permanent removal of the bound cards and makes your Vanguard and base 18k. Another primary target to put into soul is Stealth Dragon Ogijishi, which can find another stealth unit to put into soul and get plus 5k. But the impactful effect happens when it goes into soul. It counterblasts 1 to give you, the player, the skill that your front row stealth units have plus 5k power, and it puts 2 of your opponent's bound cards in the drop zone. With the ceiling of attacks this deck can reach, having a blanket plus 5k boost is amazing on making damage triggers not end the turn. It is also another consistency booster for the deck, and is a pretty good early game card since it will be a base 15k attacker on the turn you play it. The biggest help for the attack ceiling is Tsukuyodachi, which binds itself whenever it goes into soul, and while in bind zone, if you put 2 more rearguards into soul, you can counterblast 1 to call it. This really just massively increases the attack ceiling of the deck. Since Shojodoji calls to 2 different rows, you only get 1 extra attack. Tsukuyodachi helps create a second attack off of it. It can really chain together well with our next card, Kinren, which at the end of the battle it boosted, you put the column into soul and add a grade 2 or higher stealth unit into your hand. So it can recycle Persona Rides or units you had to guard with before. But the important part is that it puts 2 rearguards into soul, which allows Tsukuyodachi to call itself again. Between these 2 cards and Shojodoji, you're able to go upwards to 7 attacks in this deck, which the only other deck that does that consistently is Shiranui. For the mulligan, a primary target should be Izazao since it is a searcher of any of our stealth units, then Ogijishi because it is a free searcher and helps the numbers of the deck be stable, and after that is Kinren since it is a peace finder / extender for the deck. For the first few turns, Shojodoji can be very fast through the free rearguards turn 2 and all the effects that are live. Izazao and Ogijishi are amazing early game call targets, and if you go first, then Ogijishi can swing for 23k if you have a booster behind it. On your turn 3, the deck is officially at its full power. There is a very high ceiling depending on how much Counterblast, Tsukuyodachi, and Kinrens you have access to. The biggest thing is to not fully commit to blowing all of your resources and getting a 7 attack turn. If there is 1 Counterblast open, you can get 5 attacks if you have Tsukuyodachi, Raidon Kunai, which is a countercharger, and still be able to use Ogijishi. Once you have access to Persona Ride, you can really focus on putting on more attacks since there's less opportunity for damage triggers to ruin the turn. Having a good enough early game and pushing damage throughout every turn makes the Persona Ride turns much easier to close out the game. And here's the deck list. A couple of cards I didn't talk about was Unforeseen, which is just a 23k beta, and you can also call it on your grade 2 turn if you see it off Shojodoji. And there's Raidon Kunai, which is a countercharger and a 10k shield from the bind zone. Now, if you want a budget list, right now Unforeseen and Tsukuyodachi are very expensive. So for replacements, I put in Raspier and Gunjoku, since they maintain soul and can have early power as well. Gunjoku also has the upside of giving on-hit pressure, and it's very easy easy for the power to be set up for it. And that's all for Shojodoji. Shojodoji becomes, at worst, the second best deck in the format, still behind Shiranui, just because of how versatile it can be, and it really has a lot of skill expression for the deck. And that's all. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I'll see you guys in the next one.